Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me here on LinkedIn Live. My name is Makeda Waterman, and today we're going to be talking about how to let go of that feeling of shame and guilt for things that you have experienced in your past. We have all had some kind of time in our life, whether we're going through it now or in the past, where we've made some mistakes or unknowingly did something that we weren't supposed to do. And for whatever reason, that uncomfortable feeling of shame, guilt, embarrassment keeps creeping up. That could be because people are triggering you with things they say or do, or treating you differently than they did when they found out the mistake you made. But we're going to get into it. But first, I just want to say I'd love for this to be interactive. So please leave your comments and your questions below. And if you feel like somebody can benefit from this live stream, please send this as a link to them through LinkedIn. We're also going live on not just LinkedIn, but YouTube and Twitter. So let's get straight to it. So first and foremost, people's opinions that they have of you, mistakes, whatever the case may be, is their opinion. You might be from the same country, tribe, village, neighborhood, religious organization as people, and quite often, or they could be your parents or your grandparents or your wife or your children. These are people that could potentially be very, very close to you, and they have their opinions on things that you have said, done in the past, and they quite often might be bringing it up so that they can get what they want from you, or to shame you, or to guilt you, etc. But you have to keep in mind that people's opinions about what you do are strictly their opinions, and opinions and beliefs, I would say opinions, are based on people's experiences in the past, the way people that were actually raised, etc. So if you're in your mind, you don't necessarily agree with this guilt and shame expression that people or an individual is giving to you, one of the things to kind of get out of feeling bad about what people are saying is to remember that's what they've experienced. This is maybe how they were raised. Maybe this is just their new aspect of life, but what does that have to do with you? Now, I know many of you have heard that expression, if they don't pay your bills, if they don't put food on your table, what does it matter? But what if they are paying your bills? What if you are being taken care of by a husband or a wife in some cases, or your parents are taking care of rent, they're literally investing in your business and then telling you and shaming you and guilting you about mistakes you've made or you're currently making. So just keep that in mind. An opinion is just an opinion. It is not a pot of gold. It doesn't define who you are. And most importantly, it's what they think of what they would not do or what they would feel like if they were in your position, which has nothing to do with you whatsoever. So that's one great way of kind of looking at it, right? Also, ask yourself, are other people's opinions of mistakes you've made, are they facts? Because I've said this in, I think, my last live stream, that somebody can do something or someone can experience something and 9 or 10 other people can too. And they will have a different feeling, belief system, thought process about what they just experienced, because we're all encoded different DNAs. We're completely different human beings, right? So when somebody tries to shame you, you have to ask yourself, does what they think really matter? Because that's their perspective, but here's mine. And then you have to ask yourself, is other people's opinions or guilt strategies towards you, the things that they're saying, is it true? If you, let's just take, for example, let's say, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say you went to a specific country, but you didn't really do your research on what you can and cannot do in that country. So you do something in that country, maybe you get in trouble, whether it's a severe consequence or not, it doesn't really matter. So you come back home and you're having some reflection. And so you have to ask yourself, were you really trying to be a bad person when you went to another country and did something that you can do back home, but you didn't Google it, or you didn't really do your research to find out if you can do that? Are you really a criminal if you went to a country and you did something that you had no idea or awareness that you weren't supposed to do, but now you're coming back and reflecting on that experience? So you have to really ask yourself, did you really intentionally try to be a bad person try to disrespect somebody's culture in a country that you didn't really educate yourself on. This is all just a learning lesson, right? So that's one way of looking at it. Now, we also have to accept our past. I can't think of anybody that I know personally that is really successful that hasn't made mistakes or in our conversation says things that don't have any 100% facts to back up what they're saying. Do I shame people when I hear them say something that I can quickly Google and it's 100% false? Absolutely not. That's, who am I to judge, right? And am I going to argue with somebody if they say something that is not a fact, but based on their belief and opinion? And now I'm going to argue somebody down to get them to believe? It's not going to work. So you really have to accept what you have done, what you're doing, and take accountability, because I think that's probably the first step on an inward journey perspective, is to take accountability of the mistakes that you made and realize that we are all flawed. We are all human beings. I don't know the exact statistics, but I hear a lot of therapists and life coach talk about this on the internet, that only 10% of the population, nobody's really specific on what population means, but only 10% of the population actually go through the inner work. What does that mean? Therapy, healing work, spiritual work, whatever you want to call it, light work. There's so many different names for it on the internet, but only a small percentage of the planet are actually working on themselves. So the fact that you made a mistake, and those people are going to make a mistake too, it's just a part of being a human being. So try to lighten up, not really put yourself in this really box that you're a bad person, or you should have known, or you should have done better. We're all flawed. It's not about being flawed. It's about, what are we going to do about it? Then you have to also tell yourself, and this is what I've learned through coaching, is that in that moment of making that mistakes, that's where you were mentally and emotionally. That's where you were at that time. So let's flip the script, and all the people on the line who like judging people and shaming people so that you can feel good about yourself, just remember that that person made that decision, said that thing, did that thing, didn't do, didn't say, because that's where they mentally, emotionally were at that given moment, which means there's a neutral basis and a neutral, clear canvas for tomorrow or the minute after for complete revamp, change, healing, improvement, accountability, apologizing, etc. So we cannot put somebody in the same folder mentally. And if, again, for all my people who are going through some shame, if somebody or anybody really, because this can happen, I remember watching this reality show, and one of the people in the reality show was born and raised in a really strict religious home. And he went on another reality show and did something that was against the religion. And because the family and the culture was really strict about it, he became an outcast. Like, as soon as the family found out he did something on this reality show, his entire family cut him off. And he lives with that shame. And as a result of that, this particular man in the reality show that I'm talking about, not the one where he made a mistake or did what he felt was right, in the show, he's very needy, and he's over exaggerating conversations with people, and openly looking for validation and acceptance for other people on this reality show that I'm talking about. And initially, everybody in the reality show was like, he's weird, he's desperate, he's ba ba ba. But in the end, it's because he was rejected from his family. They shamed him, and now he's trying to look for a new family. So when we are going through our life decisions and people are making fun of us, they don't understand your story. They don't understand what you've been through. Who are they to tell you you're this, you're that, or you're not good enough, or you're not this enough, or you're not cultured enough, or you're not your culture enough? It's just an example. Who are they to judge you when you probably have a long backstory as to why you made those decisions? And then we also have to talk about the opportunity to free yourself of this guilt. Tony Robbins, in his book, Awaken the Giant Within, it's one of the most pivotal books that I've ever read in my life. where I realized that a lot of the beliefs that I had through school, through society, through being raised were false. And that book made me realize that there's a theory that he has, Tony Robbins, that we do things to avoid pain, and we do things to feel good and get the pleasure. Most of our decision making in life is based on pain and pleasure. So with that being said, do you want to live a life where you're walking on eggshells? You have to dress a certain way, act a certain way, talk a certain way so you can be accepted by someone or people that are guilting you of a mistake you made 20 years ago, 5 seconds ago, 2 minutes ago, 2 milliseconds ago? Or do you want to live in peace and have your pleasurable life where you are doing what feels right, as long as it's not against the law, of course, and as long as you're not doing anything to hurt people for your own gain? Let's just be specific here. Do you want to live in guilt, or do you want to free yourself of any cultural, family, societal guilts that have you or you believe have been put on you? Because sometimes we are really guilting ourselves. We are really putting ourselves in a box, comparing ourselves to other, which is really a detriment to your inner happiness and your ability to live freely so that you're not walking on eggshells to please anybody. And I'm not saying, and I know I do these parallels in conversations, I'm not saying that you're going to go to grandma's house and disrespect grandma because grandma said you should come into her house and, you know, give her a hug or some pleasantries. And now you're just going to walk up in grandma's house and not do that. That's grandma's house. So when you're in somebody's house, if you don't agree with what grandma says, I don't know, maybe you have to have a conversation, but we're not talking about just living free and hurting people or disrespecting people's homes, etc. Right? We're talking about your life, standing on your own 2 feet and being you. Now, let's get down to the really great stuff. How do you speak to somebody who's shaming you and guilting you and holding it over your head so that you can stay in line or you can be reminded that you're not that great? Because really, I personally think anybody who exercises the action of shaming anybody is deeply insecure. And to me, if life was a game of chess, that is the weakest person on the chessboard, is the most insecure person who tries to make people feel bad and constantly guilts you. So keep that in mind. This is not something you say to the person because you'll cause more problems for yourself, but you have to ask yourself, is that person insecure? So they're trying to make you feel insecure, so they're guilting you. But here are some phrases that you can say. Let's say you're having a conversation. Yesterday, you went to the grocery store. You're supposed to buy some groceries for your child, because children can guilt parents too. They do it all the time. Not all, but some children are really, really good at doing this. So your son or daughter asked you to buy a certain type of cereal, and you pick this one up. Maybe they didn't send you a photo. Maybe you didn't do what some moms and dads do at the grocery store where they, you know, actually send them a video or they, whatever, right? And so you pick up the cereal, you go home, you give it to your child, and they start shaming you. I didn't say I wanted that flavor. I didn't say I wanted that brand. Why couldn't you get it right, Mom? How could you make a mistake, Dad? So here's what you say. And my coach, Cecil McIntosh, taught me this. Okay, let them get it out. I know that sounds weird because you're like, what do you mean, okay? So are you saying that we have to say okay when somebody's shaming us because we agree? It doesn't really matter how that person interprets the okay. You just say, okay. Let them give them as much time as you start to feel overwhelmed. Okay. And then they're going to stop. Just say, okay. Don't say it over and over again. Just say, okay. After every 2 sentences, okay. And then they're going to stop. And what's going to happen, and I do this a lot to people, and what they do is they lean back and they said, okay, there's no argument. There's no defensiveness. There's no trying to get an argument with me. So they actually start creating a solution. Or because you keep saying okay every 1 to 2 sentences that they share with you, they start feeling bad because there's nothing to say after okay. Right? So here's another thing. let's say somebody's shaming you. There's no particular example. Just say, I hear you, yet this was my intention. My intention was to get the right cereal for you. I can definitely go back tomorrow morning. What do you think? Because oftentimes when people are judging us, we get into the mode of, I need to protect myself from this person, especially if it's in front of family, friends, or even worse, strangers. Sometimes we feel like we have to argue with this person to defend ourselves. And that's not necessary to do that, because I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, but I've seen people bully people, not physically, but with their words. And I've seen strangers come and say, who are you talking to like that? Like, how dare you talk to this person like that? Who are you, right? And we're not gonna play neutral so that we can get people to help us, because we're grown adults. We have to take care of ourselves. But this okay method that my coach taught me, and also this I hear you, yet my goal is to really get this brand. I'm sorry, take accountability. I'm sorry that I didn't call you to confirm. I'm sorry I didn't take some videos and photos and send it to you before I left the grocery store. But how about we go at 5 o'clock this evening? We'll return it and we'll get exactly what you want so I can know for next time. And now you just turned a shameful conversation geared towards you into an opportunity where that person knows, like they register in their brain, I can't do this to her again. Because she's just going to keep saying, okay, come up with a solution. So I'm not saying that we are also doing this to change people who are shaming you, or change anybody who's trying to deflect on their own insecurities and throw an insecurity towards you. I'm just saying that this is the best way so that you can be in a very positive, neutral place mentally and emotionally, so that you don't turn a negative conversation or statement towards you into something that unequivocally becomes problematic and can really cause even more shame and guilt as an argument or whatever the case may be than you really need. And I didn't put this in my notes, but I just think it's really important to realize that we all have we all have an expectation of ourselves. All my perfectionists on the line, we have an expectation to be regarded and looked upon by people that we care about and strangers in a certain light. And the reality is you can't control that. You could literally be a human being who walked a straight and narrow path. If you were to become a politician, there's nothing that they can find on you to embarrass you, right? But somebody's going to still think something of you. You can literally walk into a grocery store. I'll give you an example. I go into a grocery store quite frequently, not going to say the name. And whenever the cashiers speak to me, man or woman, I always answer the question and I will ask them something, because we're just having a conversation, right? But sometimes when I go in the grocery store, certain things I like, they're moved, or certain things I like are discontinued in my city. All those people on the line who live in medium-sized cities, sometimes things you love become discontinued for whatever reason. And so when I go in this grocery store, I am laser focused. I get my cart and I'm looking, I'm almost like I'm an investigator, just looking to see, do I have my fruits and vegetables where I need them to be? And I overheard one of the cashiers tell a new cashier, whenever that lady comes in this grocery store, she always looks angry. But I'm not angry, right? And so I overheard him saying it and they were staring at me, but I had to keep in mind that because I was always kind to that particular person that made that comment. I overheard what he was saying. He has an expectation for me to go in the store on 10, like a cheerleader bouncing around. That is not my job, to make anybody feel secure when I go in the grocery store, to make the owner, the cashier, as long as I'm kind, respectful, and compassionate, I don't have to jump like a cheerleader every time I come into this grocery store. I'm laser focused, and I don't have to go into the grocery store after hearing that and put a smile on my face to make that person feel secure with themselves. You see? So these are the little things. These are also things that might not be directly towards you. You can overhear people talking about you, and now you feel every time, like imagine I was deeply insecure. Now I would go in that grocery store smiling and looking at, hey, how are you? Do I have to do that? I'm just there to buy groceries. And if I end up at his counter, I will talk to him, I will smile, I'll laugh, I'll make a joke, da da da, and I'm gone. I don't have to perform for anybody. And then that's my last closing statement is, unless you are a comedian, unless you are an entertainer, you still, at the end of the day, as an entertainer, you have to take your outfit off, the microphone, put that microphone down and go home. So are you going to be on 10? Are you going to be an entertainer everywhere you go? And I think that, I don't know if it was Chris Rock, the comedian, but I remember a couple of them in interviews where they like, I think even Jim Carrey said it, where quite often is when they meet new people, they quite often think they're always going to be the comedian. Always, so then they have a bad day, they're a little sad, they're upset, they're moody. People are like, oh, you're not the person I thought you were. We don't always have to be performing for anybody. Unless we're on stage, unless that's your business or your craft, you don't have to be anything for anybody except for do your best to be respectful, compassionate, kind, wise. If it's toxic, if the values don't align for all my love relationship, journey people, or if it's just not it, you don't have to perform for anybody. That's the last thing I'm going to say. So I really hope this live stream was helpful. If you feel that this conversation can help, this chat, this live stream can help somebody, share it with them. And if you have any questions, thoughts, feelings, ways to get out of that mindset of shame, leave them below in the comment. And if you have any of the same things that I just mentioned, but you want to be anonymous, you don't want to leave a public comment, feel free to send me a message. Thanks so much for joining me here on this live stream, and have an amazing Sunday and an amazing week. Take care.